everyone, it's me, Julian Greystoke. I'm here with my laptop, Candy, and we're going to talk about the books that I read in this month, which is May. It's May, the lusty month of May.
It's here, that shocking time of year.
I'm here with Nigel, who's going to hit me in the face with his tail, and I'm wearing this Star Trek shirt. My red shirt, which I haven't worn in a while and I just rediscovered in my closet, so it's very exciting. Hey guys, this is the world's fastest reminder that you can support me on Patreon and see all kinds of exclusive videos like these ones. Now back to your regularly scheduled program. If you've been here before, you know the drill. I'm just going to talk about the books that I read in the month of May and what I thought about them and whether there'll be a review of it or not in the future. This is a really good way, along with following me on Goodreads, to keep up with what I am reading before I'm able to get a review of it out, because I'm incredibly slow with making reviews and I have a huge backlog. Let's just start. First off, I read Snuff, which is a Discworld book. It's one of the City Watch books. I really liked Thud. I have discovered that I have a fascination/love for fantasy police. I don't know why. It may have been started with the Becca Cooper books. I don't know if it's like I love the Becca Cooper books because they are fantasy police, or I love fantasy police because I love the Becca Cooper books. Who knows? But I loved Thud, and so when the Overdrive app had Snuff, which I believe is the next book after Thud, available, I scooped it right up. Unfortunately, I found it pretty disappointing, and that makes me very sad. It just didn't really have a plot like it did, but it didn't. I don't know. I need my book to be a little bit more substantive than this. And while it was entertaining and I liked the characters, Thud just was so much more engagingly structured, and I just wasn't into Snuff. I did give it 2 stars though, because fantasy police. Oh, what was Snuff about? It was about Commander Sam Vimes, who is the leader of the Watch in Ankh-Morpork, I believe, and he and his family go sort of on vacation to visit his wife's inherited land because his wife is wealthy, and it's just kind of Sam is away from his natural habitat of the city, and of course a mystery is to be found, and it just kind of follows him as he sort of meanders about very slowly and unenthusiastically solving this crime in the countryside. Next, I read Finding Audrey, which is the story of a girl with severe anxiety who, at one point in her sort of school life, had something cause her to have a full-on, serious sort of mental breakdown anxiety attack, which caused her to become agoraphobic and just kind of basically lock herself at home. She was, I believe, even in a psych ward for a while, or whatever the British version of that is, because this book is British. And I really quite liked it. I gave it 4 stars, so not quite perfect for me, but I really enjoyed it. I love the family dynamic of Audrey dealing with her family, of her brother and her mother had this feud going on that I found fairly believable, although the mother is a little over the top for me, but I think she kind of had to be. I wasn't a huge fan of the romantic interest, and it's really hard in books like this to get away from the implication that romance is going to solve your mental health issues, and this book didn't manage to get away from it either, which is why I knocked off a star. It was still quite enjoyable to read, and I do recommend it if you like contemporary and you like books about people overcoming anxiety. It is fairly realistic, with the understanding that she will not be able to just overcome it in one fell swoop, but there is the romance angle that I just didn't love. Next, I read Not If I Save You First, which was sort of supposed to be a action-packed thriller, sort of summer blockbuster movie of a book, which was about a teenage boy and girl. The girl is the daughter of a Secret Service agent, and the boy is the son of the president, and for reasons, they both end up at her father's homestead in Alaska, and things go south from there when some Russians appear to try to kidnap the president's son. And so the girl, hyper-competent teenage girl, has to save him and save the day. I don't remember if I was going to make a review of this. I gave it 1 star. I was really hoping that I could at least enjoy the campy actioniness, but I hated, I don't know why I finished it. I guess morbid curiosity. I hated everyone and everything. It was nothing but cliches, and it was sort of insulting to everyone involved, including me, so I would not recommend it. Even if you like the sort of action-y thriller mile-a-minute stories, I didn't even like it for that. Next, I read Slade House, which I gave 4 stars. This is a sort of horror-esque story about a house that appears once every, I want to say 12 years, but it's probably longer than that. But this house, Slade House, appears every now and then and sort of absorbs someone. It traps someone inside it. It lures them in like a spider, and this book follows several sort of short stories of people getting taken by Slade House until presumably, hopefully, someone is able to overcome Slade House. I wasn't sure about it because I knew there wouldn't be like a main character for me to latch onto, but honestly, that didn't end up bothering me at all. I thought all of the characters, even though many of them are doomed, were engaging enough for me to follow, and most of them were flawed people, and some of them were even deeply unlikable people who you almost rooted for to get eaten by the house. But I was very pleasantly surprised by Slade House. Again, not perfect for reasons I'll talk about when I do a review of it, which is coming up, but pretty darn close. I was pretty happy. Then I read On the Come Up, which I believe is my first 5-star review of this year. I loved it. On the Come Up by Angie Thomas, who wrote The Hate U Give, is the story of a girl who is struggling with her desire to become a rapper and her desire to be successful with her art, with the backdrop of her school being very high security, and she is assaulted by a security guard, and her, again, similar to The Hate U Give, trying to find her voice, trying to find her own personal way to stand up for herself, and hopefully to break a cycle of violence in her life. And so yes, I loved it. I didn't love it as much as The Hate U Give, but just because there were some flaws in it doesn't mean that I'm not going to give it 5 stars, because those flaws were not enough. I will say that the music and fame side of it was the most predictable and went pretty much exactly where you expect it to go, where pretty much every single story about a young person who kind of gets some fame and gets some notoriety, where is that story going to go? You can probably guess the beats, and this book does not really deviate from them, but everything else I felt was so strong and engaging that I did not mind that the music subplot was pretty cliched. I would recommend that you listen to the audiobook. I did, and I thought it was really well done, so yes, my first 5-star. And then right after it, I have my second 5-star in a book called I Was Here, which is a story of a girl whose best friend has just committed suicide, and she is trying to not only deal with that, but she's struggling to come to terms with the fact that she doesn't know why her friend committed suicide, and so she goes on this like search to figure out what actually happened, if there's someone that she can blame. And huge trigger warning on this book, obviously, for suicide. If you have attempted suicide, if you are suicidal, if you know someone who has, if you've lost someone to suicide, I would tread very cautiously into this book. I don't want to discourage anyone from reading it because I thought it was really good, but it does not shy away from these subjects. And so if that will hurt you, please tread incredibly carefully. Now, there were some things about it that I didn't love. I didn't love the romantic interest. It seems to be a trend for me in especially contemporary not loving romantic interests. He felt very pointless and very tangential, and whenever he was around, I was like, why are you here? You were not an important part of this story, because this really is a story of a girl coping with the loss of her best friend, and also the loss of the family that came with her best friend, because she was sort of raised by her best friend's family. You know, when you have like an other mother, a woman who essentially you can walk into her house and be treated just like her child. That's how the main character grew up, with her best friend's family, and now she doesn't know where she stands with them anymore. Is she still kind of their child? There's so many dynamics, and it's so beautiful, and I recommend it. I highly recommend it. And then we have a 1 star in the form of These Broken Stars, which I don't know why I read. Why did I read this? Why did I keep reading this? Morbid curiosity, I think, is why I kept reading this. It showed up on the front page of the Overdrive app. You guys, you know that I have an Overdrive problem. It's like, if a book looks even remotely interesting, it's there, it's free, it's available now. I download it. But These Broken Stars was a huge disappointment. It's sort of Romeo and Juliet in space meets, I don't remember what it was like touting itself as, but it's these two people who come from very different walks of life. The girl is rich and haughty, the guy is a poor soldier boy, and they crash land on a planet where they are the only 2 survivors for reasons, and they have to survive, and more importantly, they have to fall in love. And least importantly, they have to solve the mystery of what's going on this planet. And that probably kind of tells you why I didn't really enjoy this, because like 90% of this book is romance, and 10% is figuring out this overarching mystery of what's going on this planet. I was very curious about the mystery, but honestly, I think I was just hate reading this. I was spiked reading this because the mystery was not enough to keep me going. If you're not looking for romance, if you're looking for a survival story, if you're looking for a mystery, if you're looking for that kind of thing, These Broken Stars, not it, fam. These Broken Stars is hardcore. Your classic inept girly girl falls for hyper-competent male who helps her survive in harsh conditions. And I never liked that, and this book did not make me like it anymore. And finally, I read The Two Princesses of Bamar, I believe is how it's pronounced, which is by Gail Carson Levine, who I believe wrote Ella Enchanted. If I'm wrong, future me will correct me, but I almost didn't read it because it looks so middle grade, and I was like, why is this in my TBR? I don't remember why this is in there. And then I started to listen to it. I was like, well, I'll just listen to it because it's what I have. And Gail Carson Levine's writing popped immediately, and I was like, oh, this is why it's by her. I love her writing so much. Even her middle grade stories, they don't talk down to the reader. They don't feel like you're reading a middle grade. They're just very enjoyable. I don't usually read middle grade, but this one didn't bother me at all. Another thing that she does in her middle grade stories is she doesn't feel like she needs to keep the characters a certain age. Like, I don't even know exactly what the age was of the main character. This is the story of 2 princesses who live in a land that has been cursed with a plague called the Grey Death. One of the sisters falls ill with the Grey Death, and it is up to the other sister to adventure to save her. There's a lot going on in this story. It does still have that sort of sweet fairy tale-esque feel to it, even though there's some very dangerous situations and people die. But there's nothing too, like, over-the-top violent or anything like that. It's sort of all off-screen. But there are dragons, there are ogres, there is sword fighting, there are adventures and elves, and I didn't love it as much as Ella Enchanted, which is one of my favorite books of all time, but I gave it a solid 4 stars because it was enjoyable. There you go. Those were all the books I read as of the 28th of May. I may finish one more before the end of the month, but if I do, I'll just roll it on over into next month's wrap-up, if I do a wrap-up. I don't know how long I'm going to keep doing these. They aren't turning out to be terribly popular, but I guess I'll just keep doing them for a little while and see how we do. Anyway, I'm going to let you guys go. As you know, if you like what you saw here, there's a lot more of it on this channel, so go check that out. I've been doing this booktube thing for a while. If you want to help me out and support me and potentially help get me better equipment for this channel, you can support me on Patreon, where you will also get access to a lot of content that is not seen here on this channel at all. So go check it out. There's all kinds of cool stuff over there. I post new videos here on Mondays and Fridays. All the links to my social media are in the doobly-doo for ease of your clicking, and I'll see you again next time with whatever it is I happen to be doing next time. Bye! Well, hey everyone, it's shout-out time again. I'm here with this month's patrons, Lennox, Amanda, Thelia, Jenny, Kim, Lisa, Sabby Panda, Sam, and Sarah. Thank you all so much for supporting me. It means a lot.